Welcome back to the Bravery Blueprint with my co-host, as usual, the great Brian Ellis. And man, this is going to be a banger of a show because we have the law enforcement life coach himself, John Kelly, here with us. John retired for 30 years out in Florida, one of the largest sheriff's departments in the country, a ton of experience, a ton of stories. He's doing incredible things across the country with his signature seminar. John Kelly, how are you doing, man?
Listen, man, it is wonderful to see you. I'm telling you, Brian, it's great to see you as well. Thanks for having me on the show, gentlemen.
And you're early on, John. I thought of you early on. Brian and I started this podcast and the topics, the things you talk about and what you're doing. I told you a year ago when I first met you, you're going to get very busy. I'm not sure you believe me, but now you believe me, right? You've been busy all over the country doing your thing.
It's what a blessing, man. I've just been real fortunate. Think people are thirsty for leadership, man. I think people are thirsty for self-care. I think they go hand in hand. You can't lead people if you can't lead yourself, right? And so I think both of our messages. I think we're in a time where there's this void, and it's so needed. And fortunately, the message is being well received, man. I'm very blessed.
Yeah, and there's so much synergy there, John, with what you and Brian does, and of course, you and I have taught back to back at conferences before, and we've seen the synergy firsthand. So it's so good to get multiple people trying to accomplish the same thing, but we all have kind of a different way of saying it. I think it attracts the audience, it attracts the people we need to attract to. But man, you didn't always set out to do something like this. Tell us how you got to this point to where you're really leading the charge as far as coaching up law enforcement. Tell us about your journey in law enforcement and what got you in this place.
Thank you, Travis. I spent a lot of time training people to do things that they could do with their eyes closed. That's what we do, man. We check boxes, right? We've got mandates. And I spent a significant amount of time in training, and what I realized was guys were struggling not with cop stuff; they were struggling with life stuff. It was all the things we weren't talking about that were tripping them up and causing them great pain. And so, I had this epiphany. I'm like, man, we have really missed the mark here. Yeah, you need to train high liability. You need to train on certain skill sets. But once we've got that, it's like riding a bike, man. You don't forget. What are we doing to enhance our communication skills with our partners at home? What are we doing to build relationships? What are we doing for our people? When we look at the importance of relationships in our performance and our health, for every bad guy that kills one of us, 2 to 3 take our own lives. Of those 2 to 3, half of those are the result of a divorce. We spend no time with our people, giving them skill sets to better their home life. We do the exact opposite, quite frankly. And so I had this epiphany. I'm like, man, we are missing the mark here. And so that was kind of the way sometimes heroes need help got started. I took a holistic approach that you can't just do one thing. You got to address the whole of the person. And so we tackle relationships, we tackle culture, we tackle finances, physical, mental, spiritual health. And when we attack it as a unit in a holistic approach, we move the needle, man. We make a difference. And fortunately, unfortunately, where this first responder profession is so lacking in programs and leadership that are geared towards the things that I think matter, which is you taking care of you, and having an agency that actually understands the benefits of you being the best version of you. Because right now, we give you training to make the agency better, not you. And we've got it backwards, I think.
John, I'm so glad you say that because, it is when you're a young cop, That puppy dog that comes to the veteran, he always wants to know how to get their narcotic case filed, or how to do that, parole contact better. And you really do start to sharpen the saw in regards to your prowess, your the on the job performance. But you know, we all know when I was in narcotics, you do a trash run early in the morning, and then you do a late CI by, because you're trying to get all your hours in, and you get addicted to the job, and your work life balance, quite frankly, sucks. And as you ascend in the organization, when I was a SWAT commander, I literally had to pull one of my guys aside and say, I think you need a sleep study, because I don't think you are resting enough.
Right.
It's becoming detrimental to your job. And as you start to unpeel those layers, you start to see that there's a lot of, we're humans, and we struggle like everybody else. I think sometimes we struggle more because of the fact we have, shift work and different challenges with the job, or this insatiable appetite, just like you said, with finances, where we, more, and we're going to do more overtime. And then there's this internal, like who's got the biggest overtime check and all this other things that lead to burnout and just that tiredness and everything else. So I completely commend you, for taking this approach to, helping these people. And I have to say, following you on LinkedIn, I'm always enamored by these beachy scenes that always make me go, oh man, I need a trip to the coast.
Yeah, man. That's my medicine. That's my medicine. I head off to the beach. You mentioned a thing, these situations that we find ourselves, Travis and Brian, completely avoidable. And that's the thing of it all, right? Is that you can have an amazing career. You can be the go-to guy, and you can be an awesome spouse and parent. You can have both. We've got this thing. We've been sold a lie, man. A couple of them. If you don't mind me going off on a little rant, it'll make perfect sense, I promise. In order for the agencies and departments to get you to leave your family, we got to tell you that we're family, that the agency is your family. And see, we give you awards, and we pat you on the back, and we'll make you deputy of the month, and we'll acknowledge all your hard work. We don't get that acknowledgement at home. And then so slowly the pendulum starts creeping. Everything that's positive in my life comes from work. I get acknowledged for my hard work. I got all this going on. And the next thing you know, you don't want to go home. Work is this family, and that's the big lie, man, that we get told. And we believe it. And the real work, I think, if we were to be take an honest assessment, the reason why we spend so much time at work is because it's easy. It's not difficult. There aren't challenges. You want to talk about challenges, man? Have a conversation at home that you've been avoiding for 5 years. That's the challenge, right? And so I think that we can have both, but I think the focus, right, needs to be on family. And it sounds so obvious, like, yeah, no shit, John. But I can tell you that we don't get an evaluation at home, right? You get one at work every year, right? And you care about that one. What does the evaluation look like at home, right? If we gave out a questionnaire to the kids and the spouse, how would we do? How would we be ranked? And that would be, I think, the catalyst for some serious conversations. I think that there's just so much, Brian and Travis, room for improvement that we're like water at times, man. We take the path of least resistance. And if I go through door number 1 and it's going to be a knockdown, drag out, man, and it's going to be talking about some things that I don't want to talk about, and it's going to be exposing my vulnerabilities and my I'm not awesome at home. I don't want to even have that conversation, man, because I got door number 2, which is work. And look at all my accolades and all my medals and all my bullshit. And I think that over time, over a 20, 30-year career, you lose yourself in that bullshit. All right, I'm done.
No, it's great. No, I love it because, really it comes down to mindset. And I think sometimes even the best intentions, they kick us, right between, right in the gut for for example. And I use myself as a perfect example. I mean, when I was a lieutenant, I would use my time commuting home as my time to check in on people. And, I had a 30 some odd minute drive home. And so I'd call, all my normal folks and say, hey, just checking in on seeing how they're doing and everything else. And then, some of those phone calls aren't over by the time you get home and you walk through the door and, your daughter's coming up and, so you're on the phone and you're giving her a hug, as you're acknowledging her and you're trying to get off the phone. And my wife let that go on not very long before she said, hey, look, I don't care if you pull over before you get home.
Right.
When you come through that door, it's all about her.
Right.
And it was like, at first I'm like, whoa, I'm just trying to help everybody here. And then it was like, it was the aha moment of, oh, you're totally right. It's intentionality, right?
Yeah, it's awesome that she checked you like that.
It's being in that mindset of going, you know what? Once I hit that door, it is all about the people inside of there, no matter what problem. But it's challenging because, a department gives you a phone, has complete access. When they send an email after hours, they're looking for that instant reply. And we really do have to build these moats to make sure that,
yeah, man,
I
like that. Build a moat. Yeah, man. It's called saying no. It's called setting boundaries, right? And that's one thing we don't do a good job at. That's awesome, man.
Well, a couple things. Let me piggyback on Brian's story. I would do the same thing, but I would, instead of coming in the house on the phone, I would stay in the driveway on the phone. And after a while, my wife would be like, why are you outside for 30, 40 minutes before you come in? I don't think she was as straightforward as your wife was, Brian, but I could tell pretty quick, I probably ought to get these phone calls out of the way before my car drives up to the driveway, because obviously all kinds of different things go in people's heads on why that's happening. It's not exactly normal to other people. Although it was completely normal to me, because as you said, John, we're in sort of this different world. And John, I want to give you credit on a couple things here. First off, man, you're really good. In fact, I spoke to you about a year ago on my own podcast, Courageous Leadership with Travis Yates. You weren't that good. You were okay, but you're really good, man. You're dropping bombs today. Like you I'm just messing with you. Of course you were good, but man, you are dropping things that nobody else will say. And I want to give you credit because I've built it into my training because it impacted me so much. On that podcast a year ago, John, you said something to me that I keep coming back to, where I asked you about leadership, and you said
I know
this.
Exactly where you're going with it, bro.
Of course, because this is a year ago, and I can remember it right now because I talked about this when we were together in Eureka. You said, everybody has a different definition of leadership. You ask 100 people, you get 100 different definitions. You tell me, Travis, is just about caring. That's it. Point blank, period, end of story. And then today you follow that up with, that we train to make agencies better. We don't train to make the person better. I mean, you are dropping them today, man. And this approach, I think, and the authenticity you bring with it has got to be why it's resonated. And I've seen you get busier and busier. I won't say popular, because I don't think you could ever get popular there, John. But you're just busy, man. You're busy, right?
Yeah, I like being busy.
And listen, I love you as a brother. That's why I'm giving you a hard time. But
I know.
It is that you are saying things that so few people say. And I know for a fact, in fact, if you listen to our podcast just previous to this one with Dr. Olivia Johnson, she had the same frustrations that I've heard you express in training, which I've seen you get up from training because you were like, I'm not dealing with this. And it was wellness training that's sort of this victimized training, right? We're making everybody to be a victim. And Dr. Johnson spoke about that as well. Talk to us about all of this nonsense that's out there, because what you do is kind of become the flavor of the decade, but you're the real deal. And how frustrating is it being the real deal to see all the other minutia that's out there?
Listen, so I focus on what I have control over, right? And that's me, man. And so I think when we start talking about, the current state of the union in the first responder world, the law enforcement community, caring, right? Caring, there were three guys, man, 30 years ago sitting around talking about the same shit we're talking about right now, right? The more things change, the more they stay the same. And the successful leaders 30 years ago, 60 years ago, cared about their people. Didn't matter what was going on. And so, but I think there's been a shift, and there's a problem. See, I can't care for my people if I don't know how to care for myself. And so we've anointed a bunch of people because they either have time and grade or they know somebody, right, to now be the tip of the spear. And like I said, they can't lead themselves. Their lives are in disarray. And these are the people that we're supposed to be modeling behavior after. So it takes you understanding you and what you need to do to be a courageous leader. And it starts with your own in your own house and getting your own affairs in order. And I think once we do that, man, there's a level of confidence that gets instilled, right? And then so it's like, if I have to tell you I'm the boss, I've lost, I've failed, right? I should be able to walk into a room and everybody should go, all right, that motherfucker, that's the one to keep an eye on right there. That's the one who's calling the shots. And we don't have that right now. We've got a lot of paper, what do you call them? Paper tigers floating around here, that they've got all the stars. They got all the stars. And they don't have the history to back it up. And so I think getting back to like what we said, that caring first about you, caring for yourself. And then that's a great foundation to move forward from. Great leaders care more about your people than you do yourself. And if you do that, amazing things will happen. You actually followed up, Travis, with some statistical data on surveys. When agencies and employees and officers were polled around the country, they didn't give a shit about signing.
Yeah, it was actually in my dissertation. Just to give our audience some context with that, and if you listen to that old podcast, I will link that below. You'll get that full context. But I had done a dissertation on how communication impacts organizational leadership. When you said those words, I went back to my dissertation that night and did a word search for the word care and caring, and it lit up like a Christmas tree, where I didn't see it at the time, or my software I was using to pick up things for the dissertation, I didn't see it. But when you said that, it popped like a Christmas tree, and that was tied to everything negative inside those agencies, is what you just said.
And that's the big misnomer. The people, the public, they think it's the things we see, man. They think the things that cause us great heartache, the things that keep us up at night are the dead baby call. Listen, man, it's the way we get treated in the four walls of our building. That's what keeps us up at night. That's what causes us great pain and suffering, is how we are treated by our own people, right? And so that's another one of our lies that we like to, it's the job, it's the stressors, it's the best job in the world, man. You get to go to work with your boys, all your buddies, and you get to absolutely wreak havoc, right? You go lock up bad guys, take care of good people, man. There's no better job in the world until you have to go back to the office and deal with command.
John, I'm glad you say that, because I mean, if you look at stress in police organizations, I mean, there's studies going back. I mean, one of my biggest Bibles that I've used for a long time is from 1990. It's Dr. Richard Ayers. I think it's called Police Stress and Organizations or something like that. But he cites all these different stressors for police. But the number one is the way we treat each other inside. It's a challenge. And when I think about my career, my early career, if you did something not so smart, if you went into the captain's office, he was some old crusty, like you didn't want to go to the captain's office and you got chewed.
Right.
And then you never did that ever again. Whatever it was, it never, ever happened again. I remember one captain would pull his glasses off and look at you, and it almost made you crap your pants.
Yeah.
And now we say accountability, and it's an internal affairs complaint. And realistically, the way it's being done now doesn't make you stop. It just makes you stop doing whatever you're doing. It makes you stop, period. And we're losing.
You stop, period.
It makes you stop.
Brian
period.
Ellis from the top row right there is what that is. Brian Ellis coming from the top with that hammer wrestling term. I love that.
Yeah.
And this is a big challenge. And then you compound issues when you go, and I love the work you're doing right now. Coaching is so valuable for our organization because you're putting people in the champion seat. You're not being the champion of other people. You're telling them, you're showing them the path to their own story. And which was another challenge that I had in our profession is where we're going to mentor folks. We're going to, maybe we're going to mentor you way out of this issue. And mentoring never really works because it's like, let me show you what I did, in my story that made me successful, which, I could try to be like John. I could try to be like Travis, and it's never really going to be authentically me. And so, I love the fact that you're identifying the biggest problem that we have to deal with. And that's, we really got to start honing in on our caring abilities inside of our organizations, nurture our organizations, but then it's how we nurture them that really makes, it's the 1-2 punch, right? It's the hero's journey. What makes you go watch Star Wars and all these other movies? It's the hero in that journey. And it's something we completely miss. So hats off to you for what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, and part of like adding to all this is we don't ask why, Brian. See, the system that we have in place is solely focused on doling out punishment. So when you do step out of bounds, we don't really even give a shit if you do it again. Because if we did, we would have asked why. Why did you do X, Y, and Z? And then we can actually get to the root of the problem and change behavior. But I don't want to know why, because if I have to know why, then there's some responsibility placed on me now as an administrator to be part of that solution. So you know what? I don't give a shit why. It's immaterial. You did this. This is your punishment. And that's not the way healthy organizations operate. Why is that guy such an a-hole on every call? I don't care. Not a problem. He's getting written up for conduct unbecoming. Well, if we dig a little deeper and we find out that maybe he's taking care of an elderly parent that's suffering from dementia, maybe now that starts shedding some light on the cause of his behavior, and maybe we can get him some help. And that's an organization that cares. I'm not saying we're not held accountable for our actions, but if you got a problem drinking, man, and you get a DUI, you don't get terminated. We put you in a program, man. We smack you upside the head because that's what we do, right? And we put you in a program and we try to become part of your solution. And I think that's an organization that cares about their people. And I think that there are so many missed opportunities because we're dealing from this antiquated playbook of internal affairs on, we have to be beyond reproach and transparency. Listen, stop with the nonsense. Stop. right? I've had my badge taken from me 3 times, investigated by the FBI, looking to go to federal. I know the process, and it's all a bunch of nonsense. Because if somebody asks why, we can change behavior if you want to, right? And so I think that there's so many things we should be doing differently. And the only thing preventing us from doing things differently is people giving a shit. And it's so much easier just to show up, collect a check, and go home. I remember it's none of your business, Brian. What happens with Travis outside of work is none of your business. Travis, what happens with John outside of this office, it's none of your business. And I would submit to both of you gentlemen that I think we need to make it some of our business. I think we need to get back to a different level of caring and connecting with our people. And I think once we do that, I think you get buy-in, man. I think you create a culture where retention isn't an issue, man, because I feel like this place cares about me. And recruiting, where do you want to work, man? I want to work for a place that cares about me, that has my back. Oh, next thing you know, these aren't issues anymore because we treat our people fairly.
100%. I mean,
that's it, man.
I can remember when I ran a TAC team, I had a young guy on my team that he sped a lot, and one of my peers saw him speeding down the road, and I'd already given him the warning, and you know what I did for him? I made him sit in the office, and it was the old Bart Simpson. Right. I gave him a whiteboard, and he got to write, "I will not speed" in my police car, and he got to write it 50 times. And then come find me so I could see it. And then I'd erase it and I'd go do it 50 more. And we did that for the better half of about 3 hours. And he says, "Okay, boss, I won't do this again." He never, he got shamed on our team, but he didn't get written up for it. Right. He was too damn good of an employee to, and he just needed to kind of not be Mach 1 anymore. But then I watched towards the end of my career, during COVID, that, a captain wrote, or, basically orders me to send 2 guys that bought toilet paper during the time where toilet paper is white gold. He wants a blue sheet for these guys to go internal affairs to this thing. And I'm like, are you kidding? Are you out of your mind? And thankfully, we're able to not make that blue sheet happen. But man, it was a kick and fight. And again, it goes back to this whole point of caring. And so, I love the fact that we're sitting around chewing on something that I know, just like you said earlier, 30 years ago, people were talking about. 30 years from now, people are going to talk about. Yeah. And the more that we can really hit this point home, that, if we love and nurture our people, that's the best act of leadership.
Yeah, no doubt. Somebody asked me a question the other day on LinkedIn. They said, John, I had a post basically like, if I was king, this is what I'd do. I would implement these programs, and this is what I would do. And he said, "That's great, man, but how do we get started?" Right? And I was like, "I love it, man. I love the engagement. You get started with you. Like, everybody's waiting for somebody else to jump in the arena and start the fight. Guess what? Look to your left, look to your right, look in the mirror, tag, you're it. So you start with you. And when we start with the individual, I firmly believe that, as much as we talk about cancer spreading and infecting, I think that once we start leading our own lives, that's contagious, man. It's contagious. And so we go from the individual to the squad, right? To the district, to the division, and next thing you know, we're redefining what acceptable behavior is. We're changing the culture. The culture of me now becomes the culture of you and Travis. And we start multiplying this mindset. And the next thing you know, everybody is on the same page, but it's got to start with you. I firmly believe it's a bottom up initiative. If you're waiting, if you're on the sidelines waiting for the sheriff, now if he does, that's great. I love it. I mean, there's some excellent leaders out there, but I'm not waiting for him. He's not coming to save me, man. I'm responsible for me and my guys, and that's where the initiative takes place. And I think that's so often we minimize the role that we play in developing culture. It's always somebody else's. I'm just this. If I hear I'm just a deputy. I'm going to punch somebody in the mouth. Right? The role that we play in impacting each other's lives, it can't be discounted. It can't be discounted. And I think that a lot of people like to minimize the role that they play so they don't have to step up. Oh, it's not my job. That's another thing they'll get you punched in the mouth. You tell me it's not your job, right? It's everybody's job. And I think when we take that approach, that team approach, we are unstoppable. We are unstoppable, not only as individuals, but as a profession. I see the future. This is going to be a great awakening, man. And we are going to take back law and order. We're going to take back all those things that have been given away. That's another. You get me all. It's another thing.
Man, I'll tell you what, John. I got to call you more often because you're getting me pumped up. Because I'm not as positive as you. I get so upset and frustrated. You have such a demeanor about you where you've got that MPGA going on, right? Make police great again. You got that attitude. And I love it, man. It's infectious. But I'll say this to you. I just want to reiterate what both Brian and John said. I call them hallway conversations. Brian alluded to it. Hey, there's a difference between a mistake of the heart and a mistake with intent to do harm to others. And I saw for 2 decades where leaders knew the difference. Hey, man, slow your car down. We do a little public shaming or we kind of make fun of people. We deal with it in the hallway. We deal with it in private with that officer because we care about them. There was a shift in my agency where the hallway conversation stopped. Everything went to internal affairs, no matter as minimal, no matter the intent, no matter anything. And I watched in the course of about 6 months, the entire culture be destroyed, productivity be destroyed, efficiency be destroyed, the culture be destroyed. Now, the people that did that will deny that to the day they die. They will answer to that one day, I guarantee you. But I watched it from a front row seat. So did other people. It's so powerful if we would just shift that, where we would just start caring about people to have hallway conversations again. That right there is the key. I think so many of our leaders, I call them the solar system leaders, right? You alluded to it, John. Yeah, this is the one thing that comes from me that John didn't say first. Solar system leaders have all the stars on the collar, right? And they're all proud of the stars, and they're trying to keep everybody happy where we're showing accountability. So this is how many complaints that we investigated this year. This is how many officers we disciplined this year. This is what we did for so-called accountability on my resume so I can get the next police chief's job. Meanwhile, you're ruining people's lives with the stressors, and you're ruining the culture that's gone on with that.
Yeah. And that's so the question, right, begs. So what do we do? So boys, what do we do about it? We're not benching people. This isn't professional sports.
What I want, John, out of this conversation and others is there should not be one son of a bitch in 10 years that said, John and Brian and Travis talked about this 10 years ago, and here we are talking about it again. So you tell me, how do we change this now? I know we start with one. How do we do this now? I want this conversation to end to where we care at such a level where if you don't care, you're the idiot. You're the crazy one.
You know what? It's not as hard as you think. See, what ends up happening is we, in this thing of ours, we allow for unacceptable behavior. We condone it. And it starts with how you live your life. It starts with the things that you make a priority or not. It starts with how we interact with each other. Very small, very unassuming. And if I allow Travis to talk smack about Brian and I don't call you out on it, that's a problem. I'm just as guilty. See, this is what we want. We want support from public officials. We want support from the community, right? We won't even support each other, man. Right? And so once we start doing, like, great example, that Secret Service agent that had a hard time reholstering on the Trump assassination attempt, we remember, right? Was it the public that was attacking her and shaming her for her inability to?
Don't forget about the Acorn cop.
Yeah, it was us. We attacked. People in the profession destroyed that person because we're so superior. We got to pound our chest, and instead of just calling it a training issue, which is what it was, right? We got to go. We gotta eat our own, man. Right? We got to eat our own because that makes us feel better about ourselves. So we got to knock that shit off, man. We need to circle the wagons. We need to take care of each other. I'm not saying, see, and I think command confuses take care of each other as somehow concealing illegal. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about being a big brother to somebody, right? I'm talking about caring, not allowing unacceptable behavior, holding ourselves to a standard, a real standard, not some internal affairs bullshit nonsense.
Isn't love the ultimate accountability? That's and that's my question.
Brian, I always thought, like, if I was the sheriff and I got one of my officers that was in trouble and there was a program that I put him into, or we didn't throw him in jail. We didn't throw him away. We took some steps to save him, right? Because he's a valuable asset, right? He's a person. He's a human being. How easy would that be for me to say at the mic? This is a 15-year veteran who made a mistake, and we are going to get him the help that he needs. Next question. That they're absolutely petrified to have that conversation. We're human. We're going to fall. We're going to fail. We're going to make mistakes. We don't throw each other away. We acknowledge, admit it, change the behavior, and we move on. Now, if it's something so egregious, I'll throw the cuffs on you, right? What's done is done. But we're sweating our people over nonsense, and we're destroying their lives over things that quite honestly, 30 years ago, wouldn't even raise an eyebrow.
Well, it reminds me of the movie Stripes, where the guy's talking about staying out of my stuff and everything else, and he ultimately said,
Francis.
Lighten up, Francis.
Yeah.
Right? It's a lighten up, Francis moment. We get so tied up, and going back to what you said earlier, because I think it's a really important position of our conversation, is there's a lot of amazing organizations in the United States. I mean, I'm going to flat out point one out because I see their work day in and day out, and it's been really amazing to watch. And I've seen the data from their organization, and that's Sheriff Mark Lamb's organization. And I know Travis has had some experience there. You just talk about how they get culture right and everything else. And then you could take the most extreme poor culture organization. You can still find islands of excellence within those, that are operating within those organizations. And so I love your challenge and your rally call of like, hey, next man up, like, let's get up. Let's saddle up and wherever we're at in that spectrum, whether it's super great or it's really bad, we all have opportunities to keep pushing the right way.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit more about, you talk about the simplicity of this culture, like, hey, beyond just stepping up, I mean, what are some other things that we should just, kind of just start lacing up, and, the top 2 or top 3 things
I'll give you
that we
one,
can
and
do?
it's all encompassing, Brian. All right. I'm going to simplify things for everybody. It's the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. See, because this is what we do. We obsess over that which we have absolutely no control over. We'll spend a day worrying about something that we don't have any control over, right? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. A lot of things out there you got no control over. Give me the courage to change the things that I can. That's you, man. That's the real work. And the wisdom to know the difference. See, when we stop obsessing over that which we have no control over, that frees up all the time in the world that we need to be working on us and the things that we do have control over. You can't have it both ways, man. You can't be screaming about the boss, because while you're screaming about the boss, you're not doing what you need to be doing for you. So stop screaming about the boss, man. Worry about you. Worry about what are you going to do to be part of this solution? And once you do that, it filters out all the nonsense. I go over to my father-in-law's, and I can only take about 10 minutes of him, because he's the world's ending because of the political structure of this country. And and do you know what they're doing? I go, Dad, yeah, it's crazy. You got anything else you need me to do around here? Because I gotta go. Right? I love you, but I can only take so much of Fox and CNN all at the same time, man. It's killing me. So I don't worry about that. I don't put that TV on. I don't need people telling me what everybody's got an agenda. You know what? I got an agenda. It's take care of my family, take care of me, take care of the people that I love. And I don't need them to tell me how to do that. I know how to do that. And I think if we stop worrying and obsessing over that which we have no control over, that lens that we look through every situation becomes a lot clearer. How'd I do?
Yeah, I think people listening, John, they know why you're very popular on the circuit. It just, your message just comes from the heart. It's so personal. I know that's one reason you wrote your book. You've got a great book out there called Surviving Self-Inflicted Wounds. I recommend it for everybody.
Thank you.
Tell me about the book, why you decided to write it. It's very impactful. It was for me. I think people, when they're listening to this, they have to acknowledge how unique and special your message is. Tell us about the book and why you decided to write it.
Man, that's a loaded question. I never journaled. I didn't even know what it was, man. And somehow I said, you know what? Let me make some sense of this life, right? Alcoholic, addict, adulterer. I'll stop with the A's, man. If we go to the B's, C's, and D's, we're not wrapping this up anytime soon. So I'll stop with the A's. And I figured some things out, Travis. I've been with Mrs. Kelly 30 years. Despite my best efforts.
Mrs. Kelly's a gem. She's a
I'm
gem.
telling you, man, despite my best efforts to destroy that marriage, man, I tried. She didn't let that happen. I've fallen and failed so many times. Shameful. I've lived a shameful life at times, but I've also stood back up and gotten back up. And sometimes I did it on my own, but more often than not, it was with the help of people that loved me. People that loved me when I gave them no reason to do so. You hearing me? No reason to love John Kelly, and they did. And I think part of this writing of this book was a calling. Listen, we all have shit, man. We all have a past. Your past doesn't define you. You define you today in the present moment. And if we can realize that we all have shit, and that maybe we can just be a little kinder to each other, right? Maybe we can love each other. And I know, man, I know you're listening and you're saying, "Oh, this is corny bullshit." Um, I think we got to get back to that time because that's real. And I think the way we've, what's if we keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result, that's insanity, right? Well, I'm going to submit to you that we need to do things differently. We need to change the lens that we look at our lives through and situations through. And when we do that and we incorporate different skill sets than we've ever had before, then the results change, the behavior changes, the outcome changes. But right now, we're this hamster on a wheel, just running in place, and we're not making any progress because we keep doing the same things, expecting a different result. So the book is an attempt to bring some awareness and an awakening to the potential of you, man. I think it's a little bit of hope, and I think it's a rally cry that we're not done, man. I think our best days are ahead of us, and that we just acknowledge that everybody's going to struggle, man. But if we can be there for each other, there's nothing we can't accomplish. We're unstoppable.
John, I'm so glad. I mean, first, being vulnerable is the ultimate sign of courage. So number one, hats off to you there. And what you just said resonates with me in regards to just this. We all have our own stuff. Mine was an intensity issue, right? Like I'm a Malamo all the time. I can't sit still, and it's great in some environments and it's not so great in other environments. And it has a propensity to be a workaholic, especially for things that you like to do. And I've struggled even in current times with running a wellness organization, well-being organization, because you're just like, I got so much stuff to do. But all that woo-woo stuff, the non-tough guy things it's that yin and yang, right? It is that, you need sleep. If you don't sleep, you're going to die.
Right.
You can't be strong in the gym without sleep. You can't, you can't lose body fat without sleep. Music therapy for me was a game changer in regards to just being able to down regulate that intensity switch. Mm-hmm. Right. That's something that I struggled with for a long time, of just like, I can't sit and watch a movie.
Right.
And so I'm glad that you make this message, to the audience is the fact that, look, some of the stuff that we've condoned and where he said, it's really not for me. Not going to do yoga, and I'm not going to meditate, or I'm not going to journal. Well, these are some of the biggest opportunities for you to have an aha moment and know yourself better, and know your body better, perform better. But we tune it out for this bravado-ness or this, I that's just really not me.
Right. Now it's, I love the fact that you really hammered down on sleep. Sleep repairs the brain. Sleep repairs the brain. And and I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to speak for the three of us, but we would brag about not going to bed for a day and a half, that somehow we were superior to you if you needed sleep, and good God, you don't know what you don't know, man. There's so much out there. There's so much information out there. Techniques, skills, methodologies to enhance you and your life. We just need to be open to the possibility that there's something else out there that could benefit us that we don't know about. And I know that can be a hard pill for first responders to swallow, because we are know-it-alls. But it is. I think it's an amazing time, and I'm excited for our young people that are entering this profession, because I think they're going to have a better life than the three of us ever had moving forward.
Well, John, in addition to your training and your writing, I know you do coaching as well. How can people reach out to you? I mean, if you, for those of you listening, if you haven't figured this out, John's the real deal. He knows where the resources are. He knows what you need. You just have to give him a call. How can they reach you?
Thank you, Travis. It's the website. It's the easiest way. lawenforcementlifecoach.com, lawenforcementlifecoach.com. I know it's all one really long word. But that's the best way to get in touch with me. I also have the podcast, the Sometimes Heroes Need Help podcast, and also have a foundation. If there's a first responder out there struggling and they need some assistance, heroesguidingheroes.org. All resources available for the first responder community to help you get through a tough time.
John Kelly, we can't thank you enough. Thanks for being here.
Pleasure.
Thanks for everything that you do. Brian, that was a banger, right? I didn't lie to you.
Yeah, that hour went by real fast. And I appreciate it. I look forward to many more conversations in the future.
It sounds good. You guys are the best. I appreciate you.
If you've been listening, if you've been watching, thank you for doing that. Please subscribe, spread the word, spread the message. John Kelly's the real deal, and there's many more coming. Thanks for being here.